What makes an orchestra truly come alive? You might think it's just the musicians, their instruments, and the music itself, but there's one more crucial element at play: the conductor. With just a lift of the baton, they set everything in motion, 100 musicians moving as one, shaping sound, guiding emotion, and breathing life into the notes on the page. But how is it that the only person on stage not making any sound is actually controlling everything you hear? Today, we're diving into the often overlooked, surprisingly intricate world of conducting. Where did this role come from? How did it evolve? And why does it matter so much? Back in the early days, conductors as we know them today weren't really a thing. In medieval music, there were choir leaders that helped the singers stay synchronized through hand gestures. And later on, in the Baroque and classical periods, an early form of conductors that would keep time by banging a big staff on the floor. Like Jean-Baptiste Lully, who accidentally slammed it into his foot, got gangrene, and died. When small ensembles of instrumentalists became a thing, musicians would simply follow whoever was playing the most dominant part, like the first violinist or the harpsichord player. But as music became more complex and ambitious in the Romantic period, orchestras also grew in size, and keeping everyone together became trickier and trickier. Enter the conductor. Initially, the conductors were the composers themselves. Berlioz, Wagner, and Mendelssohn were all accomplished early conductors. And it was Mendelssohn who was the first to start waving a baton to control the orchestra and bring his compositions alive. Which begs the question, how does waving a baton actually control the orchestra? Let's start with the basics. The most obvious job of a conductor is keeping the tempo. But wait, musicians already know how to count, right? They have sheet music with the tempo marked. Why do they need a human metronome? Well, imagine being a violinist in a huge orchestra. You're surrounded by dozens of other players, and depending on the venue, some of the other sections could be 10 or 20 meters away. If everyone just followed what they heard, the sound would be a huge mess because of how long it takes sound to travel. Plus, nerves might affect the interpretation of the tempo for each musician differently. Instead, musicians lock onto the conductor, who acts as a single visual reference point, making sure everyone stays together. And they do this with clear, repeated movements with their baton hand, called beat patterns. For example, for 2/4 time, the conductor's hand traces a clear downward motion for beat 1, followed by an upward sweep for beat 2, creating a simple down-up pattern that musicians can easily follow. 4/4 is a little more complicated since there are 4 beats, and it tends to use lateral movement for beats 2 and 3. But like with 2/4, beat 1 is a downwards movement, and the last beat of the bar is an upwards flick. Now, with all that said, it's still important to point out that the conductor is not meant to be a one-to-one replacement of a metronome. You might have noticed that sometimes it looks like the conductor is out of time with the musicians, and other times the conductor stops doing the beat patterns entirely. So this is where we need to talk about the more abstract side of their responsibilities as a whole. Another big part of the conductor's job is to provide their own interpretation of a piece of music. While there are markings on a score as to how loud a section should be or how instruments should play something, they're not scientific and exact, so each conductor might hear the music slightly differently in their head. So to get this vision across, they'll use their other hand, their facial expressions, and their body as a whole to guide the musicians. So for example, in dramatic sections, they might decide to stop doing the beat patterns entirely and instead focus on getting the emotion across with more dramatic movements. Or in a section with no strong rhythm component, they might opt to be more fluid with the tempo to bring out a particular feeling in a melody, for instance. This is also why it's common to see a conductor being a little out of time with the music, because they need to be able to indicate ahead of time how the music should flow and feel. Here's Leonard Bernstein showing how a passage might be conducted differently to signal to musicians to play a particular way.
To beat a short, sharp, or staccato 2, or he should be able to beat a warm, smooth, singing 2, which is called in music legato.
This is why conductors can make the same orchestra sound completely different. Some conductors have a style that's precise and mathematical, others are more fluid and expressive, drawing out emotion with every motion. Another job that they have is to make sure that instruments come in at the right time, and that the orchestra sounds balanced whenever it's playing. Musicians in different sections will hear the music differently as a result of their position. So it could be that the horns playing too loudly drowns out a violin melody, for instance, and lowers the emotional impact of the section. So it's up to the conductor to control different sections of an orchestra so that the overall balance is exactly as they intend. While the stylistic choices they make could be compared to a film director's interpretation of how a movie scene should go, this aspect of their job could be likened to a mixing engineer, making sure that all the different instruments are providing the impact that they're supposed to. Now, at this point, some of this still might sound like magic. How does a mere movement of a hand mean the violins should play more legato, or the horns should play quieter? And even though the earlier Bernstein clip demonstrated how you can pick up a surprising amount of information from the conductor's movements, the vast majority of the work is still done during rehearsals, where the orchestra might play the same passage over and over, and the conductor will stop them and tell the violins they need to play more staccato, for instance.
Eine Probe ist nicht Musik. Eine Probe ist eine Summe von unzähligen Nein. Nicht so schnell, nicht über den Fagott, nicht so laut, nicht so flau, nicht so, nein, nicht. Wie viele Nichte gibt es? Billionen. Und wie viele Ja? Nur eins.
The conductor will still make small adjustments during the performance, and the musicians can pick up on that, given that they know the conductor's usual demeanor. So they can tell whether the conductor is expecting something beyond what they practiced in a given section. A slight lean towards the string section or an emphatic gesture to the brass might be all that's needed to adjust balance in real time. So even though the conductor's movements might look mysterious or bizarre from the outside, they are the emotional core of the orchestra, transforming written notes into living emotion through their interpretation of the composer's intentions and a shared visual language developed over hundreds of years and hours of rehearsals. So next time you listen to an orchestra, try to focus on the synergy between the conductor and orchestra and how that affects the transmission of emotion to you as the listener. And also, don't forget to like this video or watch one of our other videos in this playlist over here, or come join our Discord community using the link in the description below. And I'll see you next time on Mixed Signals. Bye bye.